I'm Tia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you all of the books that I read during the month of February 2022. So in February I actually ended up reading 20 things, which I know sounds like a lot, but about half of them were actually manga, and I will save those for the end of the video because I know probably not everyone who watches my videos is into manga, but there were some really good ones. So if you have any interest at all, definitely stick around for the second half and maybe you will find some that might pique your interest. And yeah, other than that, let's just jump right into the books. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my Book of the Month Club books that I read during the month of February. And I'm sure that you probably know this by now, but one of my main goal, my biggest goal for the year of 2022 is to read all of the Book of the Month Club books that I own that I haven't read yet. So I shared with you how many of those there are, and basically for me to be able to get through all of them this year, I need to read between 7 and 8 every month, and I didn't make that goal during the month of February. So I only ended up reading 5 during the month of February, which isn't bad, but I definitely was hoping to read more. Yeah, anyway, so 3 of them are ones that I have actually already talked about in my last Book of the Month update video. So I will leave that linked down in the description box if you would like more information on these 3 books that I'm about to share. But right now I'll just show them to you and tell you what my ratings were. And if you want more info, like I said, go check out that other video. So first, during the month, I read Circe by Madeline Miller. This one I buddy read with Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly, and that was really good that we buddy read this together, because even though I found this to be pretty boring, I think it would have been a lot harder to get through if I hadn't had someone who I knew was reading along with me and was kind of keeping me, on pace with the book. I thought at the beginning that I was going to end up liking this more than I did, but the middle part was pretty boring, and I ended up giving this 3 stars out of 5. Then after that, I read Are The Brennans by Tracy Lang. This one is like a family drama. You meet this family from New York who have a whole bunch of secrets and a whole bunch of things going on in their lives. I really enjoyed this one. It was shaping up to be a 5-star read, but right at the end I changed it to 4.5, I believe is what I gave this on Goodreads. I think I might have rounded it up to 5, but it was a really good read. I just wasn't 100% sold on everything that happened. And then finally, the last one that you will find in that other video is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This one is a contemporary romance, and I gave this one 4 stars. Now, the other 2 Book of the Month Club books that I managed to read during February were actually my February Book of the Month Club picks for the month. So these arrived in February, and as you know, as part of my challenge, I have to read the books that I buy that month from Book of the Month Club if I want to purchase any for the next month. And I knew that Simone St. James' book was going to be in March's book box, so I made sure to push these out at the very end of the month so that I could be able to get Simone St. James' new book in March. So here they are. I read The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This one, I believe, is marketed as a thriller. I don't really think that this is that thrilling. I'm so confused by ones that they call thrillers. I would say that this is more of like a couples drama. I don't know. I don't know what I would describe this as. There is a tiny bit of mystery, but really nothing that thrilling happens until much, much closer to the end. So let me see what I can tell you about this without it being spoilery. This is basically about this therapist who's not really a therapist anymore. She is like a non-traditional therapist. She's had her license revoked for reasons that you end up finding out in the book. Her name is Avery, and she takes on clients based on like this 10-step program that she has developed. And the clients that you are following in this book are what is considered to be the golden couple. They're this couple who seem like they have everything together on the outside, but obviously they don't, because they are coming to this therapist, counselor, whatever, Avery, for help with something that they have going on in their lives. And so, yeah, that's basically the gist of the story. It switches back and forth between Avery's perspective and then the wife's perspective. Sort of like a storyline that goes through here that I don't enjoy reading about, and it always makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to tell you what it is because I don't want to spoil the book. But if you want to know, if you're worried about this book, you can definitely message me and I'll tell you more. The other thing is that I didn't enjoy the point of view that this was written from. Both of the perspectives that you're following are written from third person omniscient, which was really weird the way the story was told. So it was like, Avery looks down at her watch. Avery thinks this. She knows that it's going to be like that. Just the way it was written, I did not mesh very well with, and I think that might have been one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy this as much as I thought I would. I ended up giving this one 3 stars just based on the fact that I didn't like the way that it was written, and I did not think it was thrilling. Nothing very thrilling happened. It had, like I said, it has this main plot line running through it that I don't enjoy reading about. The ending does have a little bit, of that makes you feel like, okay, maybe this wasn't a complete waste of time. Maybe it deserves a 3 instead of a 2. So if you've enjoyed, I've never read anything else by these authors, so I don't know if this is like, common for their work, to just not be that thrilling, to be more of just like a domestic drama, which is just not really my thing. I'm starting to learn. I'm just not really into domestic dramas. I much more prefer like mystery thriller. So I don't know how to make sure I steer away from that. Maybe just don't buy books that have the word couple in them, or wife, or whatever. I don't know. I think I rambled on it enough about this. So there's that book. Okay, then I also read The Maid by Nita Prose. This is one that I was highly anticipating. I can't remember if I think this came out in January, and it's one that I really wanted to read. I'd been hearing lots of great things about it, and I also heard that it was going to be made into a movie. So I was really looking forward to this book. And I enjoyed it for the most part. I was kind of like between 4 and 5 for most of the book, and then at the end I ended up giving it 3, I think. Yeah, so this book is about this young woman, I think she's like 26, who is a maid at this boutique hotel, and her name is, I forgot, Molly. Duh, how could I forget that? Because they always call her Molly Maid. They paint her as like this quirky young woman who doesn't really understand social cues she doesn't understand like people's facial expressions, and she doesn't understand what they mean by certain things, but they never really explain if she is autistic or if she just is slightly socially awkward. They never really explain exactly why, So it's kind of hard to know whether or not we are dealing with a neurodiverse character, or if she just is a little bit socially awkward. I mean, aren't we all a little bit socially awkward? I know I am. But anyway, so she's a maid at this hotel. She's really, really good at her job. She says some really funny things in here that I ended up marking. Like in the beginning, I was just loving her and loving all of her little catchphrases and stuff. I thought she was so funny and lovable. But then as the mystery progresses, so the whole thing is that she finds one of the people that she cleans their room for, like on a regular basis. She comes in and finds him dead in his bed. And so that's when the whole mystery starts. And because she's the one that found him, she is like really caught up in everything that's going on. And, she's questioned and all this stuff. And so, like I said, I really enjoyed her at the beginning. I was really invested in everything that was happening. But then as the story went on, I just felt like there were bits and pieces thrown in here that just weren't consistent with her character, for one, and for two, it was just like, I don't know. I think I was just really, really frustrated with the ending is why I knocked it down a star. Yeah, there was just something that happened at the end that I didn't feel like was consistent with her character and was not discussed enough. It was just sort of thrown in there and glossed over. And I feel like for the magnitude of what was thrown in there at the end on us, that it wasn't discussed enough. It was like a really big deal that I feel like would have affected her greatly, and it was just kind of just lumped in at the end, and I just really didn't like that. So I ended up giving it 3 stars, and I'm still kind of confused about how I feel about this book, honestly. I have my book that I read for the No Cover Charge Book Club, which is a book club that I run with my husband. And this month we read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I probably had way more fun reading this than I should have, honestly. I really enjoyed the experience of reading this along with my husband, and then having the book discussion with everyone who joined us here in February. It was just so much fun. Now, would I have enjoyed it as much if I wasn't buddy reading it with my husband and then discussing it with all of you? Probably not. But this is a book that is about this young woman named Feyre who lives with her dad and her 2 sisters. They are very, very poor. They don't have any money and they barely have enough food to eat. One night she is out hunting for food for her family, and she ends up killing a wolf, and the wolf turns out to be someone very important to a fairy who, the fairies like live sort of on the outskirts of their town in a different like world, not a different world, but you know, it's like separated between humans and fairies, and where she lives is kind of just on the border of where humans and fairies live. And so this fairy shows up to sort of exact revenge on the fact that she's killed this wolf who belongs to like the fairies or whatever. And it just goes from there, and you follow Feyre and you learn a lot about the fairies, and it is this book, there's just so much that you could discuss about this book, and I don't know how to do it succinctly. So I will say that the writing in here is not that great. She is very repetitive in her usage of words and phrases, but it was just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed not necessarily Feyre, but I enjoyed the fairies, and I enjoyed getting to learn about them. I enjoyed the 2 male fairies that we get to meet, and I am very intrigued to find out what is going to happen with them in the second book. So I do plan on reading the second book, and we'll just see what happens after that. So I gave this 4 stars. My gut tells me that my enjoyment level is 4 stars, so that's what I finally landed on. Writing is probably more of a 3 star, but I just had a lot of fun reading it, so I'm giving it 4 stars. And after that, I ended up rereading Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I know. This is why I didn't read as many Book of the Month Club books as I should have. So the story behind this is that my daughter, my 14-year-old, wanted to know if she could read this book. And I was like, you know, it's been so long since I've read this. I don't really know if it's okay for you to read it or not. I remember that nothing like, you know, I remember this being pretty innocuous, you know, so I was sort of inclined to say yes, but I thought I better reread it just in case there's something in here that I'm not remembering. So I reread this book, and this book is almost 500 pages long. I didn't remember that it was this long, and it took me forever to get through this reread. When I first read this book, I remember just loving it, and I think it was because it was one of the first vampire novels that I've ever read, and it sort of led me down like a vampire binge back in the day. But I didn't enjoy it as much this time around. I think that it was too long, and the middle section is way too drawn out with just scenes of Bella and Edward like staring at each other longingly, or lightly touching someone's shoulder, or smelling his breath. Like, there is so much mention of how she loves the way his breath smells, and that was just too much for me. So this time around, I ended up giving this 3 stars instead of my original 4 star. But when I did finish it, the ending is good and like action packed. And so when I got finished, I was like, oh, I kind of want to read the second book now, but I didn't, yeah, because I knew I had other stuff that I needed to get to. So yeah, I reread Twilight this month. And the other book that I read this month, I forgot to bring down here. It belongs to my daughter, so it's up in her room. But this is The Year of the Book by Andrea Ching. And this is the first book in the Anna Wang series. So this is probably considered to be like an early chapter book, I would think. I'm not sure because the girl in the book I think is in the 4th grade, and she is reading lots of books that I think are on a higher level than this particular book is written for. So it's a little bit confusing because sometimes I feel like she talks about things that the audience that this book is written for may not understand. Not that it's like anything bad, it's just, you know, she's talking about books that, like My Side of the Mountain, I think she reads in here, that I don't know that, you know, this, I think this book is more aimed toward like 2nd and 3rd graders, maybe even 1st graders, and the books that the character in the book is reading are more books for like 5th, 6th graders, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I read this because my daughter, who's in the 3rd grade, loves this book and really wanted me to read it. She's 8 years old and she has read this book multiple times and she loves it and just really, really, really wanted me to read it. So I went ahead and read it this month, and it's really cute and I see why she loves it. I gave this 5 stars. If you have a daughter who, you know, is an early reader, you know, 2nd, 3rd grade, I would definitely recommend this. It's about this young girl named Anna who I said, you know, she loves to read, and she is sort of just figuring things out, you know, as a child does, like friendships and why some girls like her and some don't, and how to proceed with those type of things, and you know, trying to learn Chinese and, you know, learn more about her culture and stuff from her mother. And so it's a really sweet, precious book. I really enjoyed it. My daughter would like to read the rest of these books, so hopefully she'll be able to get her hands on those sometime soon whenever we can find them. We looked the last time we were at Barnes & Noble, but they didn't carry this series, so we need to figure out what to do about that. But and this totally wasn't on my TBR, but I have been feeling lately, my kids are always asking me or telling me that they want me to read some of their books that they have on their shelves or books that they love, and I don't do it enough, and I feel bad about that because I prioritize these things that I have on my TBR. You know, I do really, really want to read, but I also really want to read the things that my kids want me to read because they're only going to be living here with me for a finite amount of time. So I'm going to try to make it a more regular thing to read the books that they want to share with me, if that makes any sense. And the last thing that I read for like traditional fiction before I get into all the manga that I read is actually a short story that I got through Amazon Stories. So if you're a Prime member or probably a Kindle Unlimited as well, you can read this for free on Amazon. And this is called The Best Girls by Min Jin Lee. This was so good. I mean, it was only like 18 pages, but I don't even want to tell you really what it's about because it's so quick, but it's following this young girl who goes to school in Korea and her family, and her family is not very well off, and they sort of have to make some hard decisions, and she has to make some hard decisions, but she's trying her best at school to get ahead and be like a top student. And it was a really good, hard-hitting short story. And if you have access to Amazon Prime or Amazon Stories or Kindle Unlimited, just look this up and you can read it so quickly. And yeah, I haven't read anything else by Min Jin Lee before, although I do own Food for Millionaires, and I would like to also read her other story that I'm blanking on. But anyway, this short story really sold me on her writing, and I can't wait to read more by her. So yeah, definitely check it out if you can. We're into the second half of the video where I'm going to talk about the manga that I read this month. I have had this first book on my shelf for at least 2 years, maybe longer. I've always heard great things about this series, and it is Fruits Basket 1. I've owned volume 1 and 2, the collector's editions, for quite some time, and I don't know why, I finally just decided, hey, I'm gonna read that this month, even though this was not on my TBR whatsoever. But I just decided it was time for me to read it. And oh my gosh, I loved this so much. I love this book so much. So I've read few manga over the years, and the one that I fell in love with several years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, was Orange. And when I read that, I I loved it so much. And I was like, where are the rest of the manga like this? Because I am on board. And I think that was back whenever I discovered Fruits Basket, but just didn't read it right away. And I'm kicking myself for not doing that because I loved this and I want to read all of the manga that is anything remotely like this or Orange. So let me tell you what this is about. This is about a young girl whose mother has died and she doesn't have anyone to live with, so she's just sort of living in a tent in the forest. Like out walking one day and she finds this house that's pretty close to where she lives, and I don't remember why she goes up to the doorstep, but she ends up discovering the people who live there and that one of them is actually a boy that she goes to school with, and I think they invite her to stay. I don't want to give you everything that happens, but anyway, she ends up involved with this family and they sort of have like a magical secret that they are keeping and they don't want her to find out about, but does she? I guess you would have to read this to know, but I loved this so much. All of the characters were so cute and the storyline was just so intriguing and the artwork is absolutely stunning, and I can't say enough good things about this. I wanted to read volume 2 like immediately, but like everything else, I knew that I had other things on my TBR that I should probably prioritize, like Book of the Month Club books. Yeah, so they have some of color art at the beginning, but for the most part, everything in here is black and white. So after I read this, I was like, okay, I'm ready to read all of the manga, and I read a whole bunch more manga in February. They were just so easy to read in between other books as sort of like a palate cleanser, because I did have a couple of other books that I read this month that I didn't really enjoy and were sort of sending me into slumps, like Circe and The Golden Couple, and so I just really needed some things to break up those books. So let me tell you what else I read this month. The first one is The Way of the Househusband by Kisuke Ono, and I read 4 volumes of this. My library has like 6 or 7 volumes that you can check out digitally, and the first 4 were available, so I read all of these in February. These follow a man who used to be like, I don't know what the correct term would be, if it was like a mobster, a gangster, but he used to be like essentially a criminal, and he was pretty high up, and now he has changed his ways and he's gotten married and he's become a house husband, and it is just hilarious and cute, and the artwork was perfect, and these are really, really short and just so perfect to read in between other books, and I want to read all of the series, and thankfully my library has these and I can just read them digitally whenever they become available. I definitely plan on reading them as they come out, and yeah, a lot of fun. I read QQ Sweeper Volume 1, 2, and 3 by Kusuke Motomi. So this is the full series of these. After these 3, she sort of continued the series. This is like a prequel series to Queen's Quality, which is what she went on to write after this. So these are kind of hard to explain, but this is more of like a paranormal fantasy manga that's following this young girl whose parents have also died. She's an orphan and she doesn't have anywhere to live either, which sounds sort of similar to the setup of Fruits Basket, but I think there is more going on with this girl's background than there was hidden in Fruits Basket's background. But anyway, so she ends up meeting this boy who is a sweeper. He cleans a lot at the school that they go to, and I think he finds out that she doesn't have anywhere to go, and she ends up staying with like him and his family, and she ends up being a sweeper as well. And you find out that being a sweeper is more than just keeping the physical world clean. It involves keeping mental spaces clean as well, and helping other people sort of get rid of like bad feelings and negativity and that kind of thing. It's very, very interesting, and I'm probably not explaining it very well, but you discover that everyone here sort of has more going on that they're not telling, and I think that Queen's Quality is going to continue on this storyline. Well, I know it does. And so I would like at some point to start reading Queen's Quality, but that one is a really long series. And since I've just now sort of fallen down this manga hole, I don't know if I'm ready to commit myself to like a 19 volume series or not. We'll have to wait and see. So in here, I read the Ouran High School Host Club Volume 1. This one is by Bisco Hattori. So this is one that I just saw a bunch on a lot of different manga tubers videos. It seems to be pretty popular and it looked really cute and everyone seemed to enjoy it. So I thought I would give this first volume a try. My library has all 18 volumes of this digitally. So if I want to read it, I can, but I just did not really enjoy this first volume at all. It was honestly very confusing and it just was not, I don't know, I just was not meshing with it. It is about this high school group of boys who they're really rich, and they at their private high school they've decided to start this club with I think there's like 5 or 6 of them, I can't remember, where they basically like put on parties and entertain the girls who go to this private school. And then one day this person comes along and kind of stumbles into their meeting room and thinking that it's like part of the library or something, and they end up breaking this really expensive vase that's like 80,000 yen or something. And so the club tells them that they have to become part of the club to work off their debt. And so this person ends up, I think, sort of being the main character along with the other members of the host club. But yeah, and it just goes on from there. So I don't want to tell you the twist, although I think if you read anything about this, it probably tells you on the back what the twist is. But I don't know. This was just really confusing. I didn't really enjoy the characters. The storyline jumped around all over the place. I don't know if the second volume gets better or not. So if you happen to know, if you're watching this, you can let me know if the second volume is worth reading. But as of right now, I'm not really planning on continuing on with this series. The 2 other volumes that I read in February were both from NetGalley eArcs. The first one is Falling, Drowning, Volume 1 by Yuku Inari. So this one was super cute. This one is about a teenage girl who has lost her memories. It seems like she was in an accident, and she has these friends at high school who, have been her friends for a really long time, and they just sort of, they kind of are looking out for her every day. And one of them is this boy who she is best friends with, but it seems like maybe he could be more. And yeah, then you meet this other boy who's like a new transfer student, and it looks like it's shaping up to be a love triangle. This one, the artwork was absolutely stunning. The story was intriguing because there was a bit of a mystery. You don't know how she lost her memory, and it's hinted at that, something is going on back there that we're going to find out in future volumes. So if the second one had been available right away, I probably would have just binge read this because I wanted to know what was going to happen. We'll see if I still feel the same whenever I finally see the second one pop up. But this one was really adorable. And then I also read Lightning and Romance Volume 1 through NetGalley by Rin Mikimoto. So this one was also cute, but a little bit, I don't know, a little bit strange, because this one is following a young girl as well who's in high school, and the whole deal with her is that there's this guy who goes to their high school who everyone is afraid of, and he's like 20 years old. So I don't know, why is he in high school with them? It's very strange. And no one wants to talk to him because they're all afraid of him, but so she feels kind of bad for him and sort of just tries to be friends with him and talk to him and make him feel more welcome. She ends up quickly developing feelings for him, and I don't want to tell you more than that what happens, but nothing like untoward happens between them, but it's hinted at that maybe it will in the future. Like maybe they'll develop a relationship, which is just kind of creepy that there's a 20-year-old at high school and there seems to be a romance developing between him and this high school minor. So I don't know if I will continue on with that one or not. The artwork was beautiful and the storyline was fine. It's just that I just really wasn't into the 20-year-old high school student thing. So we'll see. Okay, so those are all the things that I read during the month of February. I really had an enjoyable reading month, mostly because I let myself read a whole bunch of manga that I really wanted to read. And yeah, I would love to know if you read any of these books that I read during the month of February. Have you read any of these Book of the Month Club books? You reread Twilight? Do you read manga? I would love to know all the things down in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you next time.